we're back. It is another talk with the working brother. Yet again, Matt Ehret. That is how you say it. I tried to say it properly last time, and you wouldn't repeat it. So like, I still don't know how to say it properly.
No, I think Ehret is okay. Usually it flows maybe a little bit more Ehret, just like
Ehret. All right. Because where is that from? Though? Like, is that like?
It's a German name. It's a German name.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So there probably would be a heavier pronunciation.
Yeah, probably. I guess I don't know. I'm pretty Canadianized, so I've never heard it spoken in its authentic indigenous German tone.
Yeah. We're back to talk more Bilderberg. Seeing into the future, this is going to be the 69th episode of Working Brother Talks, which is interesting because it is the 69th episode or meeting of the Bilderberg Group. So we have that going for us. Illuminati confirmed. But no, seriously speaking though,
the numerologists out there.
Yeah. I just want to give a shout out to Dan Dix, who's actually on the ground and got us this photo of Dmytro Kuleba, the foreign minister of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Who is also there. Yeah. What do you think he's doing there? Is it the Ukrainian counteroffensive?
He's being played with and having his ego flattered into thinking that he's part of some exceptional inner echelon of elite, and he's not. So I think they're toying with people like him and convincing them that they're more than they're not, and that they're somehow not totally expendable tools. But you have people like Jens Stoltenberg, another idiot tool, useful idiot who's brought in, propped up as far as an ego, and is used and could be thrown away if so deemed fit. But you got people like Peter Thiel, Pfizer CEO. They're definitely talking about Ukraine a lot. I would imagine, knowing what we can infer about how the New World Order script is not working the way it was intended to work back in the 1950s when the Bilderberger Group was being set up, when the Inter-Alpha Group was being, established, and nation states were being stripped of their right to have any influence over their future and over the economy, and as deregulation was creating a climate where more mergers and acquisitions were taking over in the 1970s and 80s. Separation of bank functions from savings and investment banking and trust and insurance the walls separating these functions were all being destroyed as banks were becoming universal banking behemoths, or what Rothschild called the multi-headed hydra that we have to create. All of these things were part of the idea of bringing the world to a place of one world government, of total crisis, trauma for the people. We saw this expressed done massively in Russia under the shock therapy 1990s, which was a hellish experience for the former Soviet Union, all regions. And that's not working out today. Today, what we've seen now in the past, especially 7-8 years, has been a new game has emerged that doesn't allow for the idea of world government, depopulation, or anything of the sort, being led primarily by Russia, China, and an increasing array of allies internationally, Iran. I mean, I think all of your viewers are already aware of this. So there's probably a certain amount of, I would imagine, some freaking out over what to do with the Ukraine card that has been played. Obviously, there seems to be signals that there is an effort to maybe shift gears towards Taiwan, towards China, maybe towards other former Soviet regions like Serbia, and try to focus on destabilizations there, seeing that Russia has come out of the past year and a bit of conflict with a much stronger hand than anyone was anticipating. So I'm guessing that there's some panicky effort to try to change gears a little bit while still using their Ukrainian Nazi affiliates as best as they can. But I don't know if that there's a full solution there.
You say Ukrainian Nazi affiliates, and it sounds crazy, but like we've all grown accustomed to the fact that not only the Ukrainians have Nazi backgrounds, but also some Canadians.
Yeah.
Including this free land lady who was also seen there.
Yeah, that's her. That's her.
Yeah. Yeah, what can I say? She's also been gung-ho on the Russia's evil. Putler must be stopped. So it's definitely on the agenda there during their talks. Let's have a look. One of the subjects brought up was AI that's officially declared on their little website. Let me see here. Press release, both of us plus the TV. So we've got AI, the banking system, China, energy transition, Europe, fiscal challenges, India, industrial policy and trade, NATO, Russia, transnational threats, Ukraine, and U.S. leadership. Well, we can strike the last one off the list.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're probably talking about the fact that there's no useful puppet that they can seem to make use of right now within the U.S. candidacy. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, they need to find a U.S. leader they can buy, and Trump doesn't seem to be for sale. Well, at least not there then for that. In any case, we'll see. Ukraine, obviously. Transnational threats, what does that even mean?
I don't know. Threats
right?
to whom, right? I mean, is it threats to them? Because in that case, you could say it's the BRICS
right?
I don't know.
Like BRICS? Is that a transnational threat to the Bilderberg Group?
That might be what they're talking about. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Like that's from their perspective, that's what makes sense. NATO and Russia, okay, we don't have to discuss that. We discuss that daily, basically. Industrial policy and trade. You think they're just trying to take away more workers' rights?
Well, the plan has been to shut down industrial civilization, as Maurice Strong, who is also a co-founder of the World Economic Forum, had laid out in interviews. The idea is for the elite to eliminate industrial civilization as part of a new crusade to protect nature from humanity and ultimately reduce the world population. So the green energy program is a part of that. The idea that you have leading figures within the EU talking openly about having only windmills and solar panels supporting all of the European industrial activity by like 2030 is a good sign of the insanity. You can't have industrial activity if you have windmills and solar panels.
I'm sorry, I have to interject because you mentioned wind farms and solar. I just saw news the other day that in California, like on one of the news channels, because of a heat wave, they're telling people who have electric cars not to charge their electric cars because the grid is overloaded because of AC demands. So yeah, definitely a good plan.
Oh, it's insane. The level of stupidity is just over the top. So maybe they're talking about the fact that they might be coming to terms with the fact that they cannot sustain their industries that they need if they want to carry out an economic fight with Eurasia the way that they're saying they need to if they go for their green New Deal, their green energy transition. So I see that's probably tied to the energy transition discussion in some way.
Yeah. And what about the banking system? Like all of these, they seem naive as points, and if we were discussing this 5-10 years ago, they would seem like ominous. But now they seem like a crisis meetings regarding all of these points. Because as far as I'm concerned, the banking system's falling apart, and it'll be over very soon.
Well, part of it is that they wanted it to collapse originally, but they wanted it to collapse with no existent rivalry that could establish an economic architecture that would not be in their control. So back in the 80s, 90s. They designed to they created the structures of a bubble economy based upon unpayable rates of debt that would be designed to blow as part of their entire takeover. But Russia,
Modern
China,
money mechanics. Modern money
yeah, modern
mechanics
money
for
mechanics.
anyone. So, yeah.
And now the question is, how are you going to fight Russia and China and their broad array of dozens and dozens of countries that are jumping on board the BRICS Development Bank, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? There's a whole an emergent new system. How are you going to do battle with that if your banking system blows out? You kind of need to have some viable transatlantic banking structure if you're going to carry out the fight. So there's probably some panicky discussion there too, I would imagine.
So yeah, the banking system is a crisis meeting, I would assume, like you're saying,
Probably.
to deal with the BRICS issue, which is also a transnational threat. Or maybe Wagner is I mean the musicians, because we can't say Wagner. We're not glorifying them. We're condemning them.
No.
They're bad. Because YouTube took down a video where I brought up the musicians. So maybe that's the transnational threats. But anyway, I'm just being facetious. China. We all know that it's highly likely that it's going to be turned up to, 9, if not 11, very soon. What's your take on their assault on China and China's internal politics that have gone awry and have recently turned, into the new Chinese emperor?
Well, they're pissed at China. I think that's clear. That of all of the nations in the world, I think the nation that scares them even more than Russia is China, because Russia got beaten down a lot more badly in the 90s in a way that China did not. China was able to keep control of their national banking structure. They didn't allow the mass privatization of the economy the way the Yeltsinites ushered in, which again was a completely Bilderberger directed operation with Jeffrey Sachs and others in the 90s who were openly, that was the intention, was to create a structure of undoing Russia as an existing thing, right? And balkanizing all of Russia into these little micro colonies under the control of the city of London and Wall Street.
That's still the plan.
That's still a plan. They didn't let go of that. They wanted to do it to China, but China had a little bit more capacity and an insight back in those days, and fought back to keep some high degree of control in place. That gave them the economic capability of building massive amounts of infrastructure and next generation technology in more efficient ways than any other nation in the world, and it's really demonstrated a level of competence that is unmatched anywhere in the world. So I think that China is making even though China's weaker on the military front, military intelligence wise, China is not as strong as Russia, but economically they are really good. They represent the biggest long-term threat, and if Russia's able to shake off the Western-directed fifth columnists that are still embedded in various aspects of the Russian, banking sector and other parts of the civil service, if that can be shaken off, then Russia could springboard fast along with China to be a driving force of global growth and progress in a seriously good way. So they have to destroy China.
Considering you mentioned this filtering out of Russian fifth columnists, do you believe that the special military operation has achieved this goal?
No. There's been a takedown. I think that there's been a removal of influence by a lot of these nests. Anatoly Chubai jumping ship last year was a good sign of this. There's been a variety of Russian traders who definitely got cut down a notch, but I haven't seen evidence that the thing has been extracted. The parasite still seems to be there, and I don't fully understand it. So that's a problem that still has to be dealt with. China's done a better job, I think, in that sense, doing a more overt draining of the swamp. Like in the past decade, since Xi Jinping launched his anti-corruption crackdown, there's been 4.6 million Chinese Communist Party officials that have been punished. 4.6 million, and some of them are really high-level operatives. Like we're talking, not just Jack Ma, who was never part of the Communist Party, but he was certainly taken down. But you had a former
with that tap on the shoulder. with a tap on the shoulder by Xi, like
Exactly.
your time has passed.
Yeah, exactly.
That was epic. That was epic. That was like a
That was
boss.
nice.
Like
That was very
when
nice.
I only then learned about the like duality of the Chinese politics scene. Let's put it that way, and how like there's a history of like a Western back faction, and how Tiananmen was not as naive as we were taught in our history books.
Yeah, no, that was a color Maidan. That was an attempted color Maidan revolution as well. That I was. It's only recently that I discovered that myself, but it's very easy to see, and there's a lot of smoking guns and research that's been done to demonstrate that what I just said is true. It was a Soros, CIA, NED operated and organized color revolutionary attempt to try to get a Pinochet-like character, somebody that they called the Chinese Gorbachev, into a position of dictatorial power. That Zhao Ziyang was his name, and he even openly stated after he was put into house arrest when the color revolution failed. But he said, if I were successful, I would have privatized the entire state and liberalized the entire economy in the same way that perestroika was happening in Russia. He said that as if it were a mark of pride. So
I don't
China
know
had
the telltale sign for me, because like I being from Yugoslavia, formerly now Serbia, after a couple of color revolutions, I kind of, you can spot it when it's there. You can recognize the flavor. And then I was watching the like footage of the protesters, the student protesters in Tiananmen then, and I was just like, wait a second, all this looks familiar, like the footage is bad quality. It's like old school VHS footage, but like the angles and the slogans and all, it's just too familiar.
Yeah, you got the Statue of Liberty, give us liberty, give us death, the square, and barricades lit on fire, and like police officers burnt to death. You're like, what?
Yeah, no comment. No comment. Let's get back to Bilderberg. I've got a list, the official list of participants here, and I'm just gonna scroll through, and maybe you can see these. Let me see if I can zoom in here a bit. There we go. And maybe you can see, and you can tell me if any of these names or countries stick out to you. What's her name? That.
Hey, Mark Carney's there. Hey, Canadian Mark Carney.
Who's he?
He's the former governor of the Bank of Canada, Bank of England as well. He governed that. He was the head of the Financial Stability Board.
Oh, that guy. The guy who was appointed by the Queen, because you're not associated with Britain at all, and you're not a colony.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Crown agents, Cambridge trained, works very closely with Christia, and he's the one who put out the threat to the private sector, saying all companies that could make the adjustment to the new green economy will be rewarded handsomely, and any company that fails to make the decarbonization transition will cease to exist. With his big, scary threat to every dirty company.
Senior advisor for China Department of Commerce.
That's interesting, yeah. Well, that's the thing too, right? You have, like, no country can ever quite avoid being, or when you are invited to Davos Summit or to World Economic Forum, or, well, same thing, or Bilderberg, you kind of want to go there to, at the very least, try to figure out what's going on from the inside, and also try to influence things if possible. But I think that it's a mistake to say that people are guilty because they're there,
Of course it's a mistake to say that. They can be guilty without even going.
Yeah, right. That's it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but none of the people who've been there have been innocent of everything. Let's put it that way. Like, I've not come across a name here who I can say, like, and I'm not saying on this list, I'm saying on the previous lists, that of all the people that have gone, none of them is like, with a clean slate. In one way or another.
No. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you had people like, what's her name? Kirchner, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, who went to a couple of these meetings. I think she's actually a good person who has fought with Nestor, her late husband, against the international financiers. But they invite you in because they are also sometimes threatening the people, like they want to bring you back in line.
Obviously.
So it's like, come back into our club, and then some threats are given to them, and then the question is, do they walk out of the ed experience having learned their lesson, or do they hold their fight? So I would imagine that if there's Chinese representation, it's probably there to try to bring them back into alignment with the original design.
A couple of Poles and some Turks.
Oh yeah,
not surprising.
Yeah, you got a lot of private sector folks there.
There's Kuleba officially there.
True.
I wonder what happened to that other guy, Zaluzhny. Maybe he's there too. That's a running joke. Where's Zaluzhny? I don't know if you're up to date with Ukraine.
No, what's it about?
Zaluzhny is, I believe, the head of the armed forces of Ukraine, or the deputy, something like that.
Yeah, right.
And he's been missing. He hasn't reported to like NATO meetings. He hasn't been seen for like a month and a half after some Russian strike. So the running joke is, where's Zaluzhny? Finland, USA, Canada. Who's Deborah Orita, President and CEO of PSP Investments? I love how they have their current titles, but like you said, like that other person who was from Canada, they didn't have what you named him as.
Yeah, Bank of Canada, former governor.
Yeah.
Super simplistic. Yeah, some people there from Financial Times as well, who are probably going to say nothing useful when they cover this thing. Well, that's what Kissinger said, right? There's that famous, David Rockefeller, right? When he was delivering his thanks to the various participants from the press over the years, without whose cooperation and secrecy, none of the developments of the New World Order would have been possible.
Yeah, and also if the viewers are interested, Luke Rudowski from We Are Change has confronted a lot of these people, and he has a lot of good videos of doing just that. One of the videos that I wanted to bring up is him actually talking, considering this is a comedy show. That one comedian, what's his name? Russell Peters. Everybody knows Russell Peters.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find that video. There it is.
President, they all get puppeteered into those situations.
Like the Bilderberg group and the CFR.
Yeah, the Bilderberg group, I think, is the one really pulling the strings. So you got Cuba, that happened at that time, and
this is a really interesting excerpt I came across today looking for clips on the Bilderberg. He also says some interesting things about, conspiracy theories in space and the moon and stuff like that. But, we don't want to get too crazy here. So we'll just stay on the Bilderberg topic. Russell Peters. Who knew, right? And this is from this year's conference where Dan Dix gets...
behind me, in the suit right there. Just walked up behind me out of nowhere and said, "Mr. Dix!" I turned around and he's like, "We would appreciate it if you do not enter or film this private area."
And this is...
So yeah, that's the thing about these things. I didn't do that on time, but they have a little patch for Bilderberg security. I don't know if you remember that when that became the police, they wear Bilderberg 2023.
Yeah. World Economic Forum has their own as well, private security forces.
Yeah. It's funny, to say the least. I don't know. The topics this year are definitely going to be things that come up in the future for us, and who can we trust better than The Guardian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big wigs. Two things are guaranteed: Kissinger and
It's amazing that
secrecy.
Kissinger is still coming into these things. What is he, like 108 years old now?
It doesn't matter how old he is. It just matters how old his organs are. right?
Keith Richards doesn't have anything on him, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I just saw a horrifying video of testimonial of one of these transplantologists from Ukraine. But let's not go deep into that. But yeah, this whole Ukraine thing is evil on many different levels. Here's another video of Alex Jones many years before that.
The protest zone.
Normally
Really?
when I go out and go about my daily business, I don't have two guys quite sinisterly filming me, dressed in fluorescent jackets.
It doesn't matter. They're just robots. They just do what they're told. Take your viruses. Take your shots, die cancer. Come on, let's go.
And this was in 2013. So yeah, what I'm getting at is that the security for these things is hilarious and is constant. And long ago, I wanted to go to one of these things. So who knows if this Working Brother thing keeps up and they decide to schedule one somewhere in my neighborhood, I might pop by one day. Could be
I
interesting.
thought you wanted to be invited. I was going to be like, well, you might have to sell your soul and drink some baby blood, but yeah, maybe.
No, just like virtually visit with a drone. That would be ideal. With like a tiny little drone. And technology is caught up, so it's definitely possible these days. Shall we play another insert?
Maybe you could literally be a fly on the wall, literally, with little
you could.
And,
you definitely could. All right. Let me see if there's anything else on their website that's worth discussing. Oh, the AI thing. What do you think that's about? That guy from ChatGPT.
It's probably how they're going to use the mythology of AI as a cover for more global control over the slaves. Who,
mythology of AI. Do you want to explain? Like, I know exactly what you mean, but do you want to explain what you're trying to say a little bit more?
Yeah, it's a great story to hide your agenda behind. If everyone thinks that just personality-free machine learning is shaping the policies of their entire society and future, then they will be more inclined to not think about the actual oligarchy, which is not willing to ever give up centralized control over the system, and their actual very, very evil agenda to herd the human, or to cull the human herd. So I think AI itself might be a potentially useful tool, where logarithms can be used to facilitate surgery or mining or a variety of things to assist us, like any technology does. But the idea that it will somehow supersede human beings, rendering human beings irrelevant, the way we've been told, and that's being marketed to us by a lot of the myth makers of the current age, it's a complete fraud. The human mind has exhibited qualities that are irreplaceable. Like, you cannot get a machine to have insight, to make the type of creative leaps that only human beings that are healthy and mature can do. They can't do those things. There's no question of reason governed by love.
Those were two very big qualifiers: healthy and mature.
Yeah, and that's the sad thing, right? Is if you're victimized, if you're processed through a dysfunctional system that keeps the mind in an infantilized, schismed state, disconnected from the conscience. If that's the unfortunate circumstance of a person that's been through that, they might become physically an adult, but they still think in a decapitated or in a perverted fashion, and they don't even realize how sick their mind is, and so they're more easily inclined to think, well, sure, a computer will be able to replace my mind, because my mind kind of already thinks like a broken computer anyway, so they can't repeat it. Right? And they're like, I better wire myself up to Neuralink to stay relevant, maybe, and get microchipped.
Do you think it's that percentage of people who have no internal dialogue are the same ones who are pro AI?
Yeah, probably. I think there's probably a direct proportion. There,
Now that it comes up, like now, like I haven't thought about it before, but there could be an overlap. Like a very Venn diagram.
I'd like to see a scientific study. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be good. All right, Bilderberg. I don't think there's much more to say. You've given us the last 400 or 500 years of history, even though they're not officially that old. Also, I think it's worth mentioning that the name Bilderberg comes from a hotel, so that might not even be their real name.
It was a useful name of the hotel, yeah, in the Netherlands, the Bilderberger Hotel.
Where they met the first time, supposedly.
The first, yeah, big quotation marks there for people just listening. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean it's really just important to see this thing at the end of the day, not to get caught on because people, what I find, I mentioned in our last interview at the very beginning that there's a certain incompetence in those trying to often make sense of this thing, and a lot of the Bilderberger research that I've seen that tries to treat it in a mechanistic fashion as if this were a thing unto itself. And then people will often treat the Council on Foreign Relations as its own thing, and the Trilateral Commission as its own thing, and the World Economic Forum as its own thing. Or the green movement of the new eugenics green agenda and the World Wildlife Fund, or I didn't even mention the 1,000
cities.
Huh?
Or 15-minute cities.
15 minutes. Yeah, that people just treat these things as if it's their own
independent things. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're all different aspects of the same thing, the same one thing, and the same one thing is an agenda tied to an oligarchical hereditary species character, which looks, and I mean, they look human. They have the DNA, I would say, of humans.
It's debatable. We don't know for sure. We can't know.
I disagree with the whole David Icke interpretation of shape-shifting lizards, though their reptilian brain might be a little bit too overdeveloped. That being said,
I got a question. How religious are you on a scale of God to no God?
I firmly believe in a good and a loving and reasonable God that created the universe and created us in His image.
All right. Yeah. Well, they might not be alien reptilians, but they'll be some kind of creatures for sure, or possessed or something of the sort. But on a biological sense, in a biological perspective, it's their reptilian brain, which is over-dominant. I mean, let's put it that way.
My whole point is that their soul is sick. I mean, they've got all of the characteristics of people who are themselves groomed. I feel a little bit bad when I study how the oligarchic structure grooms their young. You feel almost bad for Prince William and even like baby Prince Philip, who probably as a baby, given a different set of circumstances, could have become a really good person. If he was given some actual authentic love, wasn't groomed and broken as a human to become an appendage of the empire that would maintain continuity of the system. As they went to boarding school, they were given all.
Have you seen The Crown? The TV show?
Yeah. I watched some episodes with my wife to just check out the propaganda, because the way I see it is whatever they're putting out for a reation. That's an image, a brand that they want people to accept. Mm-hmm. So I'm always curious to dig into the garbage dumps and see, what what kind of garbage are they putting out there for people?
I watched it as well, much under the same circumstances when it was still coming out, and lots of stuff there that, even like you say, even the sanitized what they want you to see version makes you feel pity sometimes for these quote unquote
in some
people.
Ways, yeah. So, but the thing about the oligarchy as an oligarchical system is that they're absolutely committed to an ivory tower idea of organizing humanity around being obedient, stasis. So no change, perfect obedience, no questioning. Basically, they want to destroy the differentiation between cows and humans, so that we're happy just eating our cud. The oligarchy, the inner elite are satisfied.
Why cows? Why not sheep, man? What's wrong with sheep? Or is that too cliche?
Bit of both. Yeah, it's
no. Like I'm curious. So why did you use cows as I don't get it. You throw
Farm
me
animals.
off.
I'll broaden my landscape here. Farm animals. They want us to be perfect farm animals.
Mhm.
That might maybe occasionally even eat ourselves. Like as we feed Betsy to the pigs as part of the feed or something. They kind of want that type of closed system, perfectly
Mhm.
closed, perfectly controllable system, and they kind of deep down inside know that they're in defiance of the actual law of God, but they're too obsessed religiously with their own thing and their own vision that they're unwilling to humble themselves, to change. They can't change. They can't, and thus they're enslaved by their own ideology and their own habits to bestialize themselves as the top alpha dogs in a jungle. And ultimately, I think that'll be their own undoing and the cause of their own creative inflexibility, that they don't actually have the necessary creative flexibility to have any sustainable survival unto themselves, even though they can do a lot of damage and have done a lot of damage for the period of however many thousands of years this creature, this parasite has been like latching onto us. It's done a lot of fucking bad. But I don't think it's ultimately it's not compatible for the long haul experience of humanity. I think we're destined for something much better, and hopefully, the coalition of these civilizational forces around the multipolar alliance is the thing that will ultimately usher in or wash this parasite away. Finally, we'll see. I hope this is the time. I really do.
The biggest takeaway from these two talks about the Bilderberg with you is, from your perspective that I got at least, is that you want people to not see it as an isolated event and to see it as just one materialization of the same Club of Rome, that's operating by Chatham rules and has been for a long time.
Yeah, that's right.
Like to add?
Yeah. I mean, we didn't even unpack the Club of Rome, but yeah, that plays in big time into this. People can Google that if they want. Alexander King and Aurelio Peccei, both two high-level figures who've participated in Bilderberger meetings, as well as, oh my God, yeah. But yeah, they're all integrated. It's one thing. It's one thing. It's not many things. It's one thing, and it's tied to a moral principle or a deviation, something which despises the moral law, the natural law of the universe. It's against the actual universe and its creator. It's against that. So it's important for people to not give it too much power mentally, which is I think something that a lot of conspiracy theorists, and I use conspiracy theorists in the best of all possible terms because we are conspiracy theorists. I am a conspiracy. Well, you are. I know you are. I could see this how you speak. But that's a good thing. It means that you're a realist. It means that you recognize the reality that history in our world is shaped by ideas, intentions that are right or wrong, and we can do something and conspire for the good as well in opposition to this evil thing. Yeah, I'll have to say, yeah, that's what I would like people to walk away with morally from the story.
All right, and bringing this to a close, as I see you're also getting calls. Is there anything going on in Canada that you want people to be aware of? Considering you are in Canada, and is there anything people should be aware of locally in your surrounding that, like, you see popping up on the horizon? Let's put it that way.
I'll be doing an event with my wife next month in Vancouver. So if anybody's in British Columbia and they want to take part or get some information, send me an email at canadianpatriot1776@tutanota.com, and I'll give you that information. And otherwise, Canada's got some troubles right now. I would. I'll hopefully next time we have an interview, I'll have some more edifying things to say about Canada.
All right. So if you're in Canada, keep your head on a swivel. Elsewhere, keep your head up in the sky, because you never know if you see a mushroom cloud these days. Matt, thank you for stopping by. It's been an awesome 2 talks. Everyone who stuck around, thank you for sticking around. Like, share, subscribe. Check out the links below. And have a good one.
All right, take care, man.